Good evening and welcome to the next video I'm recording in my series of videos about my own puzzles, where I want to make it possible for people who are attempting my puzzles and may get a little bit stuck to be able to watch them to get some assistance, or if they're just after a rules explanation they can watch the videos, or if they are trying to just watch Sudoku videos for entertainment. Hopefully this will provide that as well. The puzzle I have for you today is one that I am about to release on Logic Masters Germany. This has been tested by a few people and I know it's good. It is my latest Psycho Killer puzzle. It is a It has been designed to be a new introduction to Psycho Killer, so it is probably the may not be the easiest, but it is would be equal easiest with my first Psycho Killer puzzle, Psycho Killer 2, ironically named, which I believe is about the same difficulty as this. This is much easier than my previous Psycho Killer puzzle with thermos. So this one is designed to be a not gentle, but a nice introduction to the Psycho Killer rule set. As always, I will provide links to the puzzle beneath this. So if you do wish to try the puzzle after the rules example, then you can feel free to do that. So how does this puzzle work? So normal Sudoku rules apply in this puzzle, which is called Mad Scientist by Bremster, who is me. So normal thermo rules apply as well. So along a thermo shape, digits must strictly increase from the bulb end. So what that means is if we pick this thermo, if this digit was a 3, and I'm in the wrong mode already, I'm going to do that a lot. If this digit is a 3, then this digit must be higher than a 3. It could be a 7, and then this would have to be higher than a 7. It could be an 8, or it could be a 9. It does mean, of course, that you could not put a 9 partway along a thermo because there's no digit higher than it. Now we get to the tricky rules, which is the Psycho Killer rule set, which are these red cages, and they're in red to differentiate them from normal killer cages. So in a Psycho Killer cage, and I've got the 13 highlighted, so we might as well use that one. Digits that are pointed to by the digits that are placed in the cage must sum to the digit in the cage. Now, what do I mean by pointed to? What I mean is there are 9 boxes in a Sudoku grid. This is box 1, this is box 2, this is box 3, this is box 4, etc. 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Each box has, within each box, they're all the same shape in a regular Sudoku. So what it means is if you place a digit into a Psycho Killer cage, it will point to a box on the grid. So for example, if it turned out that this was a 2, then this would point to the cell in the box in the same position in box 2. If this was a 3, it would point to the cell in the same position in box 3. If this was a 4, it would point to the cell in the same position in box 4. If it was a 5, it would point to the cell in the same position in box 5. And what that means is when you're summing to 13, you do not use the 5, you use the number that it is pointed to. So if that was a 3, then you would use the 3 to sum to the 5. If this turned out to be an 8 and this turned out to be a 7, then what you would be using is you would be using that box, and that box itself, and those are the 3 digits that would need to sum to 13. Whereas if this was a 9 and this was a 7, you would be using that, and that to sum to 13. So what these do is these provide pointers, and it's clear that these these three digits don't sum to 13, and that's fine as long as those three did in this configuration. I've got an example here, which is this simple thermogrid. This is actually a solvable puzzle with just these clues, but in the solved grid, what you end up with is you've got a 3 and a 4 in a 2 cage, and this 3 and 4 don't total 2, but this 3 is pointing at the 1 in box 3, and this 4 is pointing at the 1 in box 4, and those do total to 2, so this is a valid 2 cage. And that's how Psycho Killer cages work. Hopefully that is clear, and with that we can start solving this puzzle. Now, normally on a puzzle of this length, what you would do is possibly start marking all of these thermos. But I've done enough Psycho Killers in the past, and most of them many times, that I know that this 3 cage is immediately of interest. So with a 3 cage, each of these, because you have to have, can't have digits, you need to have 3 digits summing to 3, each of these needs to point to a 1. There is no other option. And because they are all within the same row of the grid, then it will need to get a 1 from here. Because it's in the middle, it will have to get a 1 from here, and it will have to get a 1 from here. So what it means is one of these boxes is going to need to be a 1, 2, 3 from here. One of them is going to need to be a 4, 5, 6, and one of them is going to be a 7, 8, 9. And because of the thermos, we know that that's the 1, 2, 3, that's the 7, 8, 9, and this is the 4, 5, 6. Now, again, we might look at this and go, well, we immediately want to go to the thermos, but this cell is immediately of interest, because if we would put a 2 into this cell, it would be pointing at itself and not pointing at a 1. So this cannot be a 2. If we put a 2 in there, we've already blown the total in the cage. If we put a 1 in there, what we're doing is we're pointing at that cell, but that cell would have to be a 1, and we would end up with 2 1s in the row, which you can't have in Sudoku. So this has to be a 3, and this needs to point to a 1, so that becomes a 1, and we get our first 2 digits in the grid. Now, because of the length of this thermo, before we do any pencil marking, we know this thermo needs to be maximized. And we've got one thermo fully filled out on the grid before we start. Now it's kind of worthwhile looking at this thermo and seeing what is possible. So this could be 9, the maximum on this one could be 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, and 3. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, 7, 8, 9. But some options are automatically eliminated because of the pointing digits from over here. So this can no longer, this has been reduced to 6, 7, so we can take 6 out of there, we can take 7 out of there. This is now reduced down to 5, so we can take 5 out of there, 4 out of there, and 3 out of there. And this thermo has become significantly more restricted with a jump here. Now, while I've done this puzzle a few times, I don't remember the exact path, but what I do remember is this 13 cage now comes into play. So with this 13 cage, we've already got an 8 in it. And this 8 is pointing to box 8, and this is box 8, so it's pointing to itself. So because of this thermo, this has been forced to be an 8, and now these two digits can only point to digits totaling 5. So you cannot blow a 5 total with the digits that these refer to. So what we want to look at is what happens if this digit is a 2. Because if this digit is a 2, what we're doing is so I'll mark that in green. What we would be doing is we would be pointing at that cell, and we would be getting the digit from that cell. But if we put a 2 here, we need to put a 1 here because of the thermo. And this cell would then see a 2, a 1, a 3, and a 4, and the minimum that cell could be is a 5. And we cannot, and that means this would be a 5, and we've already hit 13 before we put anything in that cell. So if this was a 2, we've already blown the total on the 13 cage. So this cannot be a 2 and must be a 3, and that therefore is pointing at that cell. We've now got the same problem. These two cannot sum to more than 5. So whatever this is, it has to be less than 5. But this is on a thermo. So we would look at it and go, this could be 2, 3, or 4 because one's already in the box. But because it's on a thermo, that has to be a 4, that becomes a 3, that becomes a 2, and this thermo is fully filled. And that 3 has given us that. So this 13 cage has done a huge amount of work just because of the Psycho Killer rule set. Now we know we've got 8 here and 4 here. Whatever this points to needs to point to a 1. But what we've got here is this is the 3 on the thermo, this becomes a 4, this becomes a 5. And this is where the jump happened, so we can no longer resolve the rest of that thermo. We have 4 and 4 here, so we know 4 needs to go in there and it can't go there, so it's in one of those two. This is a Psycho Killer pointing at 2. I remember the breaking quite well. This is the bit from here that I am going to be a lot less certain. If this was an 8, it would be pointing at this, which would be fine. This is going to point at either that cell, or that cell, and all of those can still be 1. What is next? 3 is in there. 4. So 1 needs to be in one of those two, so it can't be anywhere else in the row. But I'm not sure if that helps us yet. So 5, 6, and 7 cannot go in those cells. So these become 5, 6, and 7. So 1, 2, because they're all pointing at those two, and there's only 3 cells that 5, 6, and 7 can go into. So these become an 8, 9 pair. So this is going to point here, and this is going to point at either here or here. So that immediately becomes interesting. So what you end up with is that it'll be this 2 will point at this cell, and this 8 or 9 will point at one of those 2 cells. So this needs to total 9. The maximum this can be is 6. So, and the maximum this can be is 2. So if we used those, the maximum this could be is 8. So this cannot be 8, this must be 9, this becomes the 8. And while that doesn't fully resolve the cage, it does tell us, because we need to get this summing to 9 with this. This, if it was a 4, this would be a 5. If it was a 5, it would be a 4. And if it was a 6, it would be a 3. So this is 3, 4, or 5. There is already a 4 and a 5 in the column. So this becomes a 3. 3 plus 6 is 9. So this cage is now resolved, and we can take those out. But we do have something else, which is this needed to point to a 1. So we now know this cage here is a 1. This cell here is a 1. And one of the, and now this can't point to a 1 down here, because the 9 said that this had to point to a 3. This has to be the 8. This has to be a 1, and this cage is now resolved as well. So we now know what these 3 digits are. They are 4, 5, and 7. Now this can be 7, 8. 4 can't be here. So we know there is a 4 on the thermo, and there can't be a digit lower than 4 on the thermo, so 4 must start the thermo. So what we've got here is these digits summing to 9 must exist in those boxes, but we've got almost no information on what they are yet. This can be 6, 7, 8, except it can't be 7, so 6, 8, and this is 7, 8, 9. So we've got a 6, 8, 8, 9 in here. 6 is looking down here, putting 6 into one of those two. So has this become more restricted? It's possible that it has. So what we're looking for is a 1 in the top center. So this cannot be a 1, so this can't be a 1. This could be a 1, so this could be a 2. This can't be a 1, it can't be a 3. This could be a 1, so this could be a 4. This can be a 1, so this could be a 5. This can't be a 1, it can't be a 6. This can be a 1, it could be a 7, but 8 and 9 are already in the box. So they're the only possibilities for where the 1 can come from. 5 is in the bottom of there. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. This needs to be lower than 8, so that becomes a 4, which puts a 4 somewhere in there. It also puts a 4 somewhere down there. These two cells, however, are known, and they are 1 and 2. So if 4 was here, this would have to be 1, 2, or 3, and it can't be, so that can't be the 4. And we've got a 1, 2 pair. Further through this puzzle I go, the more different ways I've encountered of solving it, and I keep getting confused. Okay, this 8 is pointing at this 7, so that becomes a 7, 8 pair, so that becomes a 7, that becomes a 6, takes 7 out of those and puts 7 in the top up there. This becomes a 5, 6 pair. 5 now must go in the top up here. 6 now must be one of those two. Two and 3 must be down there. Wondering if... No, that's not it yet. This can't be 1, 2, 3, or 4. So it can be 5, 6, 7, or 8. So this is 6 or 8 because it can't be a 9. So this can't be an 8. So that's got it down to those 3. Maybe these 4. We need 1, 2, 3, and 9. That can't be 3. No, that's not it. 3 has to go up the middle in box 5. This 19 cage, it's too big to make too many deductions with, because this could be anything and point to basically any of these cells which are wide open. It's really hard to make a deduction with this. You could spend a lot of time looking at this and not get anywhere. 3 is in the bottom down there. This is not a 5. This is a 7. This is a 5, and we now know what cells these are pointing to. I completely missed this 5. So this is pointing at this cell, and this is pointing at this cell, and they need to sum to no more than 9. So we look at the options for these. So this can be 2, can't be 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. So it can be 8, it can't be 9. So these have to sum to no more than 9. If this was an 8, this would have to be a 1, and it can't be. So this becomes a 2. So the 7 is pointing at a 2, which means the 5 must point at a 7, and we've got a 7 locked in to that cell. That puts a 7 in one of those two. And that's restricted the 3 and the 4 a little more. That puts a 7 down here, which puts a 6 down here, takes a 7 out of there. So we're no longer looking at this as an option for where the 1 can go. So for this one, we're looking here, here, or here. And they're the only possible options. So it's those 3 cells. What's the most restricted? This row is a little more restricted than it was because it's now got 1, 2, and 3 in it. Although we've now put a 2 in there, so this can no longer be a 2. So these are 1, 3, 8, and 9 in this column, and there's a 3, 8 there. So this is only a 1 or a 9. This can be any of them. So we need to put so this row is missing 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So this can only be 4, 5 because it's got a 6, 7, 8. So this is 2, 4, 5. So we've got a 2, 4, 5 looking up the middle. So this can't be 5. This can't be a 2, which is forcing 2 into only one of those 2 spots. This can't be a 5. That makes this a 2, 5 pair because 2 can't be in those. So that's a 2, 5 pair, which means this is a 1, 9 pair. This being a 2, 5, 1, 9 pair here with a 1 here is forcing 1 into that column, but not into that cell. We now know 1 cannot be in that cell, because if 1 is in one of those. So this can no longer be a 5. So this is now 2 or 4. So we've got 1 here or 1 here. These are missing 1, 2. This can't be a 4 because there's a 4 there. So this is a 4. This is missing 1, 2, 5, and 6. So 1, 2, 5, and 6 in the column. This can't be 5 or 6. This can't be 5 or 6. So this can't be 1 or... Wait a minute. So this is a 1, 2 pair, which means this is a 5, this is a 6. That 6 makes that a 5. This is a 1, 2 pair. There's a 1 looking at it, so that's a 2, that's a 1. And that being a 1 means this can no longer be a 1. So we can take that out of there, and we knew that one of those two had to be a 1. So this becomes a 2, this becomes a 1, this becomes a 9, and this cage is now filled. That becomes a 2. This column is now only missing 1 digit, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This becomes a 9, and this is a pair, which is 1, 2, 3, which we knew, 4, 5, 6, 3, 8. So this is a 3, 8 pair. Okay, so we're getting a lot more restriction. This is a known triple, which I'm assuming is 689 because that's what we've got up the top here. That 9 is taking 9 out of those. This is now only a 1 or a 3. So because we've got a 1-3 restriction in the top of this thermo, this could never have been a 1 because it's at the top of a thermo. That has to be a 3. This can only be a 1 or a 2, and there's a 1 looking at it. That becomes a 2. That I did that stupidly. This is not 2, 3, it's 1, 2. This becomes a 1, this becomes a 2, and all of that gets resolved by that tiny little thermo. This is now 1, 8 or 9 to complete the column. This cage, just confirming it's done. 3 is pointing at 4, 2 is pointing at 1, 8 is pointing at 8. 4 plus 1 plus 8 is 13. 9 plus 2, so 9 is 3, 2 is 6, 6 and 2 is 9. These are all pointing at 1s. And this is pointing at 7 and 2, which totals 9. But this cage now has all of its values. That cell contributes to the 19. 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 And that cell contributes to the 19. Now we don't know much about those, but that's quite high, and that's a 3. And that's low. Actually, that's a 1, because we put the 2 there when we resolved that Psycho Killer cage. This is now a 4, 5. Trying to think where to look next. There is almost certainly basic Sudoku I am missing. 1, 2, 3, 7 and 8. So this is not a 2 anymore. These are 3, 7 and 8. That sees a 7, so it's a 3, 8. We've got a 3, 8 pair, which makes that a 7. Which we had from those 7s anywhere. But this is a 3, 8 pair. There's only 3 missing in this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. That can be any of them. They can be any of them. Is it this? So this can't be 1, 2, 3. It can be 4, can't be 5, can be 6, can be 7, can be 8. So we've got 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 missing. So it can't be 8 because this would have to be 9 and it can't be. So this is 4, 6, 7 and this is 5, 6, 7, 8 and it can't be 7. So we know we've got 8 in one of the outer cells. Oh, that 1 is looking at that 9. So that's not a 9. We've got a 1, 8 here. That 9 makes that an 8, which makes that a 6, which makes that a 9. That 6 takes 6 out of there. That 8 makes that a 1. This is no longer a 9. This is 1, 3, 8 and 9. There's no 9 there. 1 is in one of those two. The only place 2 can go in this, so 2, 2, 2 and 2, so this becomes a 2. I've had that for a while but didn't put it in. So this becomes a 3, 8 or 9, but it can't be a 3. There's a trick on these thermos and I'm trying to remember what it is. So if this is a 5, this is a 4 and this has no value, so that can't be a 5. This gives us a 6, 8 pair, so this can't be a 6. And we've got a 4, 5, 7 triple. Okay, we've got a lot, that's right, we've got a lot more of these digits now. So we know that this has to sum to 19. We've already got 12. So if this was an 8, we would blow the total. So this has to be a 3. And that means we've got 8 plus 3 is 11, plus 3 is 14, 15, this needs to be a 4. So that being a 4 makes that a 5, which makes that a 7, which makes that an 8, which makes that a 6. And we've now resolved all of that by using this final Psycho Killer cage. And all the Psycho Killer cages are now resolved. And we're now just down to, all the thermos are resolved. So we should now just be down to Sudoku. We've got an 8, 9 pair in this box now. So that becomes the 3. This is a 1 looking down here, so that becomes the 1. We've got an 8, 9 pair in here, so 1, 2, this has to be, 3 has to go here, 4, 5, 6, this has to be 7. So this is 5 and 8, which is remarkably unresolved. So 1, 2, 3, we've now got a 4 looking here, so that's a 4. There's an 8 looking up at that, so that's 9, that's 8, that's 3, that's 8, that's 9, that's 8. This now needs to be 5 or 6, and there is a 6 looking at it, so that becomes 5, that becomes 6, that becomes 5. This 5 is looking over here at the 8, and the 5, and this leaves the final 2 digits, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need to put a 6 and a 9 into the grid, which completes the mad scientist Psycho Killer Sudoku that I've designed. I think this one is a little bit more approachable, and I'm going to post this link to this video where I post the puzzle, so hopefully it will help people who get stuck. I hope you enjoy these videos. Apparently everyone who has watched the videos has suggested that I do say to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I wasn't trying to promote the channel too much, but feel free to if you want to, or not if you don't. But I hope that video was of interest to you, and I really much more hope that you enjoy the puzzles that I set. Thank you very much for watching.